Rise America.
President Biden. Well, meanwhile, nearly 3 months after she won confirmation to the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson has been sworn in as the court's 116th justice. Jackson was sworn in just as the man she's replacing, Justice Stephen Breyer, retires. It's in a ceremony streamed live on the court's website. Jackson recited 2 oaths required of Supreme Court justices, one administered by Breyer and the other by Chief Justice John Roberts.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ketanji Brown Jackson, do solemnly swear.
I, Ketanji Brown Jackson, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
That I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you very much. And now I'll turn things over to Justice Breyer.
Good. The judicial oath, will you raise your right hand, please?
Well, for the latest, let's now cross live to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by Rise US correspondent Eric Ham. Eric, good to see you. Less than a week since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, we've seen President Biden step in. He said that he would support an exception to the Senate filibuster to protect abortion access. I mean, what does all this mean?
Well, this is a major 180 change that we're seeing from the president. Remember, just before he left for NATO, he said that he was not for expanding the Supreme Court, nor was he for ending the filibuster rule to allow for a vote to actually codify Roe v. Wade. Now what we see is that the president has shifted course, and this is certainly going to be good news for progressives. But what we're seeing is that this fight is becoming more intense day by day. In fact, we're now learning, Dan, that cities, big cities within red states, the prosecutors and the prosecuting attorneys for the district attorneys for those cities are saying they will not prosecute individuals who actually get abortions. And so what we're seeing now is this is becoming a fight within a fight. And now with this decision by the court, it's left very little detail about how laws are now to be adjudicated and how this process is supposed to work. And so what we're seeing now is this is becoming a massive fight up and down the board. And now what we're seeing is, for example, in the state of Texas, the district attorney for Dallas said that he will not prosecute these cases. Well, that has put him squarely at odds with the Attorney General, Ken Mehlman, for the Texas Attorney General. And so now the question becomes, how does that actually play? And will there be repercussions or ramifications if, in fact, you have many of these big cities such as Dallas, Houston, and Texas, you have Atlanta and Georgia, and so cities like that, big cities in red states where that doesn't happen, we don't know, in fact, how that will play out, if there will be repercussions for those district attorneys or for the individuals in those cities who actually get abortions. We don't know. And again, this is because this is all new territory after 50 years, there's still more information in terms of what the new direction or what the new guidelines will be.
You're saying it's a sort of fight down the line. Are we also seeing a fight in the Republican Party? Because in Florida, for example, in the last couple of hours, a judge has blocked the rule change there in a sort of defeat, or temporarily halted it to the governor, Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, in fact, not only have we've seen it in Florida, but we've seen it in other states as well. And so I think what we're seeing here is this is becoming this is much like what we saw when Obamacare was passed, where it was now the law of the land that you had universal health care. And so it took time to actually roll it out. to figure out what the plan was and how you're supposed to actually move this process forward. And I think that's what we're seeing now. Now, in many states where you just not only do you have red states and then you have cities throughout the state that are red, this is not going to be much of an issue. But in places like Florida or in places like Missouri or in places like Ohio or Texas, that is going to be an issue, because now you have these prosecuting attorneys, these district attorneys who have enormous leeway in terms of what cases they can bring and what cases they cannot bring. It's really up to their discretion as to what they choose to do. And so now the question is, what impact will the attorney generals for the states have to be able to actually bring to bear any type of accountability on these district attorneys? We just don't know how that will play out. But you're right. We're seeing now where this is becoming, these are becoming fights within fights, because you have states' rights. And remember, what the decision by the Supreme Court did in these cases was they sent this back to the states to determine and figure out. And so now clearly what this means is many of these state legislatures are going to have to codify these decisions within their state laws to ensure that they are actually enacted not only at the state level, but also to ensure that prosecutors and district attorneys actually follow through on what those laws are.
And Eric, in the last 7 days since the Supreme Court's ruling, we've heard basically so many different lawsuits that have been triggered, and some cases are even overlapping into certain rights, that it's become basically a legal minefield in many states where laws are almost contradicting one another.
That's absolutely right. In fact, let's take the state of Wisconsin, where we know that they've had a law on the books about abortion for more than 100 years, going back to the 1800s, where it said that abortion was illegal except for to save the life of the mother. And so now the question becomes, how does this work? Now, remember, even though that law was on the books, no one ever followed it within the last 50 to 60 years, particularly given Roe v. Wade. And so now the question becomes, does the state actually follow this law that has been on the books for more than 100 years, a law that the state has not followed in 100 years, but now you have Roe v. Wade overturned, and the question becomes what do we do with laws like this? And so we see even within states like that, they have laws on the books that were largely ignored, were largely not followed, and now the question becomes, what do we do with these existing laws that we simply swept by the wayside, and what do we do with them? Do we follow them or do we get rid of them? What we're seeing now is a mixed bag. Some states are actually attempting to just do away with those laws on the books. Others are actually trying to codify what can and cannot be done as it relates directly to those laws. And so this is a process, Dan, that is going to play out for the foreseeable future. But of course, all of this could particularly change, because right now what we're seeing is, in the wake of this decision by the Supreme Court, the enthusiasm and energy on the left is actually changing the political makeup. So where just perhaps 2 weeks ago, we thought that there might be a red wave heading into November. Now it's not so clear that could happen. In fact, we could see perhaps a split in Congress, where Republicans could potentially take control of the House. Democrats could actually pick up seats in the Senate. And so we're watching how all of this plays out. But right now, it's anyone's guess. And so I think it's going to make, as you said, just a continued political minefield as to how the states and their legal apparatuses actually address these issues.
Now, in the last 7 days, we've seen two controversial decisions from the Supreme Court, one on gun laws, one on obviously Roe v. Wade. But we can't underestimate what basically a momentous day it is today for the Supreme Court, with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson being sworn in and absolutely shattering the glass ceiling by being the first black female judge. I mean, despite the bad or the criticism the Supreme Court has had recently, this is a day that should be celebrated.
Well, yeah, I think it's a bittersweet day. It's a day that, sure, the nation is celebrating the fact that you have a Black woman now on the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court has taken a beating in the last month or so. And right now, many see the Supreme Court as highly political, polarized, and politically charged. And in fact, right now, the credibility of the Supreme Court is on the wane. And so what we're seeing here is Judge Jackson is now taking a seat on the court that many believe simply is as partisan, as political as Congress, as the White House, and other government entities. And so this is where she is now finding herself. And because she's in the minority, there is very little that she will be able to do to actually change that.
Well, Eric, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for your analysis this evening. Eric Hammer-Rise, US correspondent in Washington, D.C.
This is Arise America.